In recent times, we have had different veteran actors like Sylvester Stallone here claim that films such as Rocky, that was one of the greatest movies of the 70s, or his other film, Rambo, about a soldier and of course very masculine man, or Conan with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and others of the like couldn't be made in today's over political climate in entertainment. It is for that reason that seeing something like Eggers the Northman feels like a breath of fresh air. With different outlets claiming entertainment needs to get rid of toxic masculinity and white supremacy, it sure feels like a surprise. Because of that, we will be reviewing today The Northman. The story is inspired by the old Icelandic saga called Amlura Saga, about a young prince who witnesses his father, King Orvandil's murder at the hands of his own brother, who usurps the throne and kidnaps the queen. Amleth escapes and vows to avenge his father, save his mother, and kill his uncle, thus reclaiming the throne and setting the record straight for his family. To go on this review, I should point out that there might be some spoilers, but I promise you they will be minimum, quite mild really, and really small. However, if you don't want to know anything before watching this film, click away, go watch the movie, and then come back for this review, where we will discuss what I consider to be the good in this film, as well as those bits that, in my opinion, need a little bit of improvement. To begin with this review, I'd like to mention the acting throughout the film. Alexander Skarsgård is a very competent actor that does wear the skin of an angry Norseman in this film. But I also want to mention the superb acting from Anya Taylor-Joy, who captivates with her portrayal of Olga, a slave who seems to be a sorceress with connection to the earth. She makes good use of changing accents and the conveying of emotion for this part. I would also be in the wrong not to mention the acting from Willem Dafoe, who has a minor role, something very really small, barely 2-3 minutes in the film, but who looks convincing as this sorcerer slash advisor slash jester to the court and the king. Hell, even Ethan Hawke's performance is up to the level. It's always gratifying to see veteran actors who have had something of a long hiatus come back with roles that challenge them, and I have to be honest. I was wary of his casting for this film, but he did a very good job as King Orvandil, and the effort is commendable, as he even tried really hard and seriously to pronounce the Old Norse words properly and to give this portrayal of a weary king that is tired and hurt, but also at the same time glad that he is back in his old hometown. So it's really a very good work here that we have from Ethan Hawke as well. And let me tell you once again that I was really not into that performance so much. Björk's performance was also very good, considering that she has had mixed reactions to her acting as opposed to her singing and musical prowess from the past. With the quirky character that she was given, she had an opportunity to shine, and the part looks just tailor-made for her. Another positive for the film, of course, is its direction. Eggers does a fantastic job at blending his style and techniques, which are too familiar to the witch fans, with the Norse mythology and legend. The production value of this film is also comprehensive, polished to the top, and beautiful. There is a raiding sequence, for example, that is, in my opinion, the best of all of the film, with many details going on at the same time, both in the fore and backgrounds, that are worth a second, third, even fourth viewing to catch all the details on the screen. Also, there is some real research on this thing, and that is something that I would also like to mention in the following aspect that I think gives an added to this fantastic production. The historical accuracy that they were trying to achieve is not lost on me, and considering that I am into Norse lore and to many who study such things, this will be a fine addition because we normally tend to have lots of inaccuracies in order to convey more fantasy and epicness. That is not the case, and when only we had the Vikings dressed up with leather, well, you welcome the change for some accuracy. And yeah, I'm looking at you, Vikings. Here, the clothing is accurate, the armor, and in some cases, of course, as you would expect, the lack thereof is precise, and the use of weaponry, and as you could be expecting from this sort of movie, the language also is good. It is not perfect, but we will see later on why that is. Worth noting is the music, which is also a fresh addition to the world of the original soundtracks that we have from movies, with guttural chants and with war songs and ritualistic music, and of course the drum music that would take any unsuspecting viewer to a Viking festival in some faraway land, or some village in Norway with the Viking themes, or with some familiar grounds, or for those that already know about this music and love what it takes to play it and to enjoy it, well, you will have a grin on your face all the time. The locations are also another great aspect of this production, even more so considering most of it was filmed in Ireland. And while there are moments in which you do think the landscape doesn't look like Iceland or any other Norse territory or Slavic territory that is supposedly depicted in the film, every single one of them is worth a stamp to be framed and hung. Hands down, one of the greatest locations out there that we have had in movies recently. The writing is good at adapting, and of course, it has to change things here and there, but adapts the legend for the screen quite well. It has a good pace and interesting character progression for Hamlet, and one or two twists that are minor and maybe unnecessary for the enjoyment of this Viking, but aren't out of place or take the viewer out of the experience or their suspension of disbelief to enjoy the film. Of course, not everything is perfect in this film because no movie is perfect, but those points where it could improve are minimal. As I mentioned, there are some twists that weren't really that necessary because they changed the original legend. They weren't bad, but I didn't think much of them either, and that is simply because I think that they put them there to give a little bit more of a tragic sense to this production. But if you read the original legend, it's already way too tragic as it is, so it was really not something that I found necessary for that purpose. Now, even though the film is well written, it can be quite predictable at times, and more so with the many scenes of foreshadowing and prophecy that take place during most of the story. For those who know the original legend or are familiar with the Hamlet from Shakespeare, perhaps this will be even more predictable. But it is not boring. This doesn't mean that the movie is slow either. It just means that maybe you will find some things you already know how it's going to resolve before it even happens. I also mentioned the good use of the language, and yes, it is good, but it's not perfect. They seem to be using Old Norse or Icelandic in most of the pronunciation, but there are some words that are not consistent with how they are pronounced, and other words are pronounced completely different. Now, as a Viking enthusiast, I know this is nitpicking because it will go unnoticed for most audiences. But I point it out because I am a purist in such matters and I always like consistency in how languages are used in such projects. The following point is not something that I personally find detracts from the overall product, but it's something I have to mention because some people might find it a little bit disturbing, and that is the violence. Yes, there is lots of violence, and for many people, it might be excessive. I repeat, for me, it was not really an issue. I don't find it problematic at all, but I understand that everyone's mileage may vary, so it is possible that for some audiences this might be a very sensitive topic, so I just warn you that there is violence, lots of blood, so you have to be careful with that and you have to be expecting that if you still want to go watch this film. As a final point that I want to mention here is Nicole Kidman's performance. And yes, this might seem like a what the hell moment because she's quite a great actor and I really love what she does. But in this case, her acting seemed to me a little bit uneven. There are parts in which she even doesn't care about trying to pronounce the words consistently. She looks bored and uninterested, and while her performance improves as the movie moves forward, it is really unfortunate that I didn't enjoy as much the acting of someone I consider a very good actor. Now, another thing also that I could detect is that perhaps she felt she was a bit out of place, or that she didn't mingle well with what was going on, or with the actors, or something, or maybe with the material, but it really gave me that vibe from her. I repeat, this could be also nitpicking, but it is what it is for me because I am that sort of person. I like to have consistency all the time. And because of that, I find these little bits a little bit unsettling, but they are again just nitpicks. I give this film a 9.5 out of 10 for its high production values, direction, music, acting, and the great adaptation of the source material. It is a movie worth watching and I highly recommend it. All in all, The Northman is a really good film that deserves more than a watch, and I pointed out at the beginning how there is this notion that films starring cis white males are quote unquote toxic because there is toxic masculinity that is unacceptable in the current climate. But the Northman debunks that in an instant with a film consistent with archaeological findings, historical records, and which has a cis white male as the main character in a sea of white people. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. We need more movies like this one, and I hope we get them soon and in droves. We deserve a little bit more from our entertainment, and I really strongly believe that there is nothing wrong with having an all white cast or an all cis male cast, whatever, because it's not about who's in the film or what color they are. It's about the message, and the Legend of Amlet is a very interesting story that everyone should pay attention to, if not for on other thing than general culture, and enjoying also the origins of different cultural interpretations, or also because in this case the value that they gave to trying to depict as accurately as they could those historical elements that are also important in every historical piece or semi-historical piece, as is the case in this legend. Anyway, thank you all for watching and see you next time.